Imagine an organization that serves over 275 million visitors each year. You may be thinking that there must be a lot of moving parts for catering to such a large number of people. In fact, there is. The National Park Service is an agency made up of parks, offices, centers, programs, and other divisions. Being a bureau of the United States Department of Interior, the National Park Service consists of many different levels. The mission of the National Park Service is, the National Park Service preserves unimpaired the natural and cultural resources and values of the national park system for the enjoyment, education, and inspiration of this and future generations. The Park Service cooperates with partners to extend the benefits of natural and cultural resource conservation and outdoor recreation throughout this country and the world. At its highest level, the NPS is led by a director who is appointed by the President of the United States. Because the director is a presidential appointee, he or she generally holds office only as long as a given administration is in power. The director works to carry out the NPS mission, direction from Congress, and the President's agenda. The NPS director, who works in the NPS Washington, D.C. office, is responsible for the management, administration, policy, and overall direction of the NPS. He or she meets twice per year with the National Leadership Council, NLC, which includes the NPS Director, Deputy Directors, Chief of Staff, Associate and Regional Directors, all Senior Executive Service Superintendents, the Albright and Benvenetto Fellows, one superintendent from each grade 12 through 15, and one additional program lead from each Associate Directorate. The NLC is not a decision-making body. Rather, the members provide advice, input, and opportunity for debate and open analysis of issues. Consider them as the NPS Director's cabinet, so to speak. The NPS is separated into 7 regions. Each is led by a regional director who is responsible for the sites within his or her geographic region and reports to the NPS Director in Washington, D.C. The 7 regions combine for over 400 sites, covering over 84 million acres in every state, the District of Columbia, American Samoa, Guam, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. The diversity of the National Park Service is illustrated by the variety of titles given to the sites. There are over 20 designations that illustrate what they are, including national parks, monuments, battlefields, historic sites, lake shores, seashores, recreational areas, wild and scenic rivers, trails, and even the White House. There are some sites, however, such as the Wolf Trap National Park for Performing Arts, that do not fit into a nice, neat classification. But the NPS is more than just these units. There are many offices, centers, programs, and other divisions within the NPS that support the individual units and the service as a whole. Each has a different function. For example, the U.S. Park Police, which is under the Visitor and Resource Protection Directorate, provides law enforcement services, primarily in large urban areas, which include the investigation and detention of persons suspected of committing offenses against the United States. They also provide law enforcement services for the many civic events conducted within the NPS. The National Park Service Office of Legislative and Congressional Affairs is responsible for the development and implementation of strategies to advance the NPS's legislative initiatives and other interests relating to Congress. The National Resource Stewardship and Science Directorate provides support to parks for the management of natural resources. Climate change, for example, is a huge issue for many of our national parks. The Denver Service Center, which is part of the Park, Planning, Facilities, and Lands Directorate, is the main planning, design, and construction management arm of the National Park Service. They provide cradle-to-grave project management and delivery and are proud of the service's commitment to environmentally sound and fiscally responsible products. This is just a small sample of the many offices, programs, and centers that support the National Park Service's mission and each and every site. Partnerships have been an important, integral part of the stewardship of our national parks. In fact, they are so important, they are part of the mission statement. The first director, Stephen Mather, understood the need to establish partnerships. The Great National Railway started a famous campaign called See America First, and Mather was an enthusiastic supporter of the movement. Today, the National Park Service and their partners foster the same sense of accountability and stewardship, and they are a part of the organization of the NPS. As Brian O'Neill, former superintendent of Golden Gate National Recreation Area, pointed out, every time we do it ourselves, we miss out on an opportunity for community engagement. 100 years ago, the American people entrusted the most precious and historical icons, assets, and lands to the National Park Service. With a workforce over 20,000 strong, along with volunteers and partners, the NPS cares for and safeguards these special places. With the effort and selflessness of these dedicated people, our cultural, natural, and historic resources will be preserved for many years to come.